Hello and welcome to Race to 2020, your podcast for everything American election. I'm James Morrow and I'm here with my good friend Jack Houghton to tell you all about what's going on in American politics this week, Jack. And I think we need to call this week's the Bad Boy Billionaires edition of Race to 2020 because it seems to be all about bad guys and rich guys, and who are the bad guys and who are the rich guys, and are the rich guys doing bad stuff, and are the Democrats going after them, or are the Democrats on their side? And I think maybe that brings us to our first member of the Rogues Gallery this week, Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, he's definitely one of the bad guys.
Yes. I think
if you're going to be declaring that someone is bad purely because of the amount of money they have in a bank account, let's separate that from someone who is truly abhorrent, someone who is truly evil, someone who has raped children.
Convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein.
Even though he only got a 13-month sentence with homestay because no conspiracy there.
No, and who apparently, allegedly, they say officially killed himself in that Manhattan jail cell.
A lot of questions over that, though.
A lot of questions over that, and a lot of fantastic memes out there also right now, and I'm sure a lot of people have
But there's been a
them.
major development in terms of how the media have been covering this.
That's the really big story this week, and this, I think, is something we want to bring everybody up to speed on. The American ABC, now this is, I think, really fascinating, Jack, has been on the receiving end, I guess you would say, of a whistleblower who has leaked tape of one of their news anchors, Amy Robach. And in this tape, she talks about how she had the whole story on Epstein. 3 years ago, 2016. What was going on in 2016, Jack? Anything political?
There was something slightly political that was canvassing the world.
The idea, and we may have a look at this in a bit, but that she said she had the whole story. She said that the ABC sat on the story, said, among other things, that they didn't want to do the story because it would possibly implicate Prince Andrew, and that Buckingham Palace was giving them pressure. This is what
which is true, by the way. Yeah, the palace can be awful about all this stuff. They're not transparent.
But the other thing, she said on this tape, she said she had evidence on Bill Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton, few things we need to know about this. Number one, it's been reported that in the court documents that have come out around Epstein and his activities, Bill Clinton flew on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, also known as the Lolita Express, 26 times
to Pedophile Island.
To this island in the Caribbean that
you can say it, Pedophile
Island. Lolita Island, Pedophile Island. Anyway, so he's on this jet. He's flying around. They went on some other trips to some other places, but apparently he was Clinton was on a guest of Jeffrey Epstein a bunch of times on this jet, going God knows where. They went to. They also, though, here's the other interesting bit. George Stephanopoulos. Now, George Stephanopoulos used to be Bill Clinton's Bill Clinton's communications director when he was at the White House. Now he is the ABC's, the American ABC's, I've got to point out, their most forefront, prominent face, anchor, whatever you want to call him. And so the theory is that, well, George Stephanopoulos here intervened on behalf of his old mate Bill to keep this one on the quiet because they didn't want anything getting in the way of the Hillary campaign, which, of course, she still lost anyway, even without that help.
Yeah, look, it's also really important to note how the ABC handled this. And I think we saw Donald Trump Jr. On The View. He even managed to kind of get the very woke audience of The View.
So this is the amazing thing, is that people are actually really talking about this because I think people really know. And, you know, that whole sort of thing where Donald Trump talked about fake news and enemy of the people and all of that. And he was talking about that in 2016. And yet now it comes out that at the same time the media was saying, this is terrible, Donald Trump is, insulting the American media, we are the First Amendment, we are the only truth tellers who are preserving our democracy. Well, it turns out that at the same time that they were railing against Donald Trump and is talking about fake news, they were covering up for a pedophile because they didn't want to hurt Bill Clinton's campaign. And this is how bad it gets, Jack. CBS, a rival network to ABC, they thought that they had the whistleblower employed on their books, that this woman
should be transferred.
Had left ABC, gone to CBS. On absolutely no evidence, and it turns out apparently there is none, they fired her because they wanted to help out ABC. So that's how bad it is.
Yeah, and she's since spoken to Fox News.
Megan Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, and she says what we do, and my guys, my team do it at Sky News all the time. We clip things, you save things that are interesting. She was in a situation in a studio where she was talking while she knew the cameras were live.
Amy Robach, yeah.
Yeah, and Amy's talking. She knows that she was doing a promotional thing, and you've done these before. We've all done these. You're mic'd up. You know the cameras are rolling, and she's talking. To me, honestly, it looked like Amy a little bit of sour grapes.
Oh yeah,
honestly, like we can get back into
look.
the hypocrisy.
I think professionally she was pretty annoyed, and
I mean, she was going on about how the story was killed. I'm sympathetic. The palace can be bullies, and I did get a little bit of look. Did Amy have all the story, or is she a journalist that's seen the biggest story break? And then now she's having a whinge. We see that all the time. Well,
of course we do, but
it's a bit pathetic.
But I think.
Let me finish this train of thought though. But if we accept on the basis of what she's saying that's true, that she did have it and it was stacked up, then it is unconscionable for the ABC to sack somebody who merely saved the clip.
So this is the American ABC. We've got to keep underlining that.
Yeah, they're just as bad as each other. But you know, this is no fault of the.
One's taxpayer funded, one's not. So let's at least give them that much credit.
But the unconscionable thing is, there's this young girl who's doing her job, and the metadata doesn't show that she actually leaked it. So what's happened is Project Veritas has come across, and obviously
that's James O'Keefe.
Yeah, it all kicked off with CNN and everything. They're talking about all the crazy stuff that CNN is doing to target Donald Trump. The bosses wanting to push them on the impeachment stuff and everything. But this girl, all she has done is she saved a clip, and they've gone, you're sacked.
Yeah.
Now, think about the parallels between that and how intellectually bankrupt that is when the same networks, the same side of politics, are the people saying, you can't name the whistleblowers in the Donald Trump impeachment Ukraine stuff.
Of course, it's a tale of two whistleblowers.
Yeah, and so Donald Trump Jr. rightly pointed this out on The View, by the way. And the audience roared. They
loved it.
Yeah,
they loved it.
To the point the View was like, okay, well, we'll calm down. This isn't a Trump rally.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to get their own audience because they've lost them.
So that was really interesting. So I think, maybe the worm is turning there. But anyway, I want to talk about another billionaire, Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg, who has dipped his toe into the presidential race. Now, he has sent people to go collect signatures to file for the primary in the state of Alabama. Alabama is not one of the early important primaries, but they do have a very early deadline to get on the ballot. This suggests to me that what he's doing is trying to at least hold his options open if he wants to, because, the Democrats, they've got a big problem. They don't have a nominee. They don't have anybody who can beat Trump. They've got Joe Biden, who's senescent.
Yeah, and he's just, he's a senile old man walking around, and he's just wearing like I'm linked to Obama, so please vote for me, African-American community.
Yeah.
That's his only claim to fame.
And he won't, and he hasn't even gotten Barack Obama's endorsement. Yeah. So, I mean, his old boss is refusing to give him a rec, so, you can, if you're Jack, you hire a lot of people, if somebody says, I used to work, here, and you call up their boss, and
the boss goes, I don't know that person.
I don't know.
Not weighing in.
We wish him all the best of luck in his future endeavors.
I'm not hiring that person.
Yeah. So there's that. There's Elizabeth Warren, who's got number one, huge honesty issues, but also is, her economics are crazy, and she's promised this.
But she's your pick. You're a big fan of.
I think that I'm not a fan. Would you stop saying this, Jack? I think that she's most likely to get the nomination.
Yeah, I think you are so off the mark here.
You've got Bernie Sanders, the old socialist.
Can we go back? Let's backtrack. Can you make the argument why you think Elizabeth Warren is going to get the nominee? You could not be more wrong about this, James. Let's be honest.
All right, who do you think's going to get the nomination?
Joe Biden will get it.
You think Joe Biden?
Joe Biden or Mike, if he does play his cards right.
So or.
Well,
so you're not making a call. Make a call.
Okay, if we're going to make a call, Joe Biden. Right now, with what we know, Joe Biden is going to get it over Elizabeth Warren. You know why? He's polling above her with the black votes. She's making these incoherent economic policies suggesting that we're going to take 2% compounding of people's total wealth, the totality of their wealth, and bring it into the state. She's bringing that. Now, where do we see arguments like that? Where do we see economic policies like that?
Absolutely.
Labor, in this year's election, what happens? They lost the unlosable election. Their economic policies were categorically rejected by the people.
And yet what happened?
Because they're too extreme.
Hold on. But this was the leader who was selected by Labor. You're talking about we're talking about Democrats voting. We're not talking about the general election.
Labor doesn't have a primaries. Labor has factional men that plant people there based on who's done favours to whom. That's how that works. The Democrats actually have a more rigorous process.
Which entirely involves getting the most loopy left-wing people out to vote.
Who is going to get the nominee?
You would take.
They need the black vote. And who is doing best in the black vote right now?
You would take the faceless men over the lunatic primary caucus voters any day of the week.
Totally. 2012 Barack Obama and everything. How does he get all this? The black vote. Hillary Clinton. How does she get the nominee? The black vote. Joe Biden has the black vote. Elizabeth Warren does not.
What are the stats on African American support for Biden versus Warren?
I think it's something like double.
Okay,
but I'm happy to be corrected on that.
All right.
But I do think it's something like double.
But I would also point out to you that at this point,
decades of going down to the southern states as well under his belt. She does not, and she's not working for, particularly with. I was reading this thing about how she is not translating well for African women.
So the point, though, is what they're going to try and do.
They see this crazy old white woman who's she's worth $12 million. She's a Harvard lawyer. She's going around there saying the big end of town is corrupt. She is a multimillionaaise herself.
And
she
what
is
devoid of.
Yeah, but he's not making the case of the 2% wealth tax.
Joe Biden is so insanely compromised by the Ukrainian business and everything else. This
I will give you that. I will give you that.
So, because every time they try and land a punch on Trump with this Ukraine stuff, it comes back around.
Yeah, and I think it was part of the strategy. I do think it's part of the establishment strategy.
And you talk about African American votes, mostly in cities. What the Democrats also want to do, they want to carve off moderate suburbanites who are turned off by Trump and his style. And I reckon they think there's a huge way through to especially female suburban voters with Elizabeth Warren. That's what I think the strategy is. But let's get back to talking about Michael Bloomberg.
Sure.
So, and then, of course, there's Bernie Sanders. So those three. And then it's gotten to the point where Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, they're talking about him now because that's how desperate they're getting. It's not. He's too small time. He's too young. He's just not getting.
He's actually suffering. When we talk about the African American vote, he is like down the bottom, and they need to clinch it. Yeah. We can disagree on the image.
Of course. But I want to talk about Bloomberg because this is really interesting because it suggests to me that there's probably people in the Democratic Party out there who are scrambling, and I keep saying, I reckon that Hillary Clinton is going to come in at some point. She said in London this week, she said never say never. But Michael Bloomberg is somebody to think, maybe this guy's a moderate. Maybe this guy is somebody who can do it. He's
not a moderate. Explain why.
So here's the thing. So Michael Bloomberg made billions of dollars. He is super mega wealthy. And he did it himself. He built a media empire off of this financial news, trading,
14th
information.
Richest man in the world, I think,
currently. He is
Yeah.
Spectacularly wealthy. So, of course, and he did it all himself, and he built a really good service, a good news product, all of that. And so you have to give him that sort of credit. He's a good self-made American story.
Sure.
So good for him.
And by the way, same with Elizabeth Warren. I mean, her claim to fame is that she started from nothing.
Yeah, okay. We'll just stop with the Elizabeth Warren.
But then she's saying the system's broken.
Yeah, well,
but she was able to come from nothing and become a Harvard lawyer with $12 million.
Here's the interesting thing. So Mike Bloomberg, he was mayor for 8 years after Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
And he did an okay job as mayor. Now I'm a New Yorker, so I can talk about this a bit. He maintained a lot of Giuliani's policies. He did some sort of weird nanny state stuff, like banning big gulp soft drinks and things like that. Very strange stuff. But the interesting thing, though, is that because the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left now, these sort of sensible, centrist Democrat policies, including very tough-on-crime policies, continuing Rudy Giuliani's stop-and-frisk program, things like that, this is going to make him absolutely anathema to a Democratic establishment right now, and especially a Democratic base, for whom law enforcement is a huge issue, and they are not the party of law and order. They are the party of law and disorder. So he's got that against him. And a lot of people are saying this. Charles Blow, who's a columnist in the New York Times, African-American columnist, who is very far left-wing, he said, this won't work. His policies indicate that he's just not right.
Well, he's also dangerous. Can you tell me a little bit about what he said about China's chairman, Xi Jinping?
Yeah, well, okay, so here's the thing. Because he's an international business guy, his whole thing is, we got to do business wherever. So he, number one, he has his Bloomberg thing has admitted to the fact that they have spiked stories and sat on stories. Again, shades what we were talking about just before, over China, just to keep access to China. But then the other week, in an interview with Margaret Hoover for the new Firing Line show, she said, well, we'll have a clip here, but she said,
Xi Jinping is not a dictator. He has to satisfy his constituents, or he's not going to survive.
He's not a dictator?
No, he has a constituency to answer to.
He doesn't have a vote. He doesn't have a democracy. He's
That
not
doesn't
held
mean he can
accountable by
survive
voters.
if his advisors gave him.
Is the check on him just a revolution?
You're not going to have a revolution. No government survives without the will of the majority of its people.
Yeah, well, one government does, and it's the Chinese Communist Party that does, because they completely own all of the state media. It is a complete dictatorship. There's reports that there's 1 million Muslim people trapped in internment camps by the basis of their own religion. One of them's an Australian boy. President Xi Jinping has refused to give this child back to America, even though his father here is desperately pleading with the Chinese government. It is the most corrupt dictator.
It's a corrupt dictatorship. It's everything.
It's the unconscionable human tragedy that are behind Chinese walls. It is insane for him to make this statement.
Of course it is. I mean,
I get your point. He's a wheeler and he's a dealer. I'd actually love to see Donald Trump and him kind of duke it out. Because these two New York billionaires.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
That'd be great.
But that statement, if that is his insight to foreign policy, the guy's a muppet and he's not a centrist.
Go talk to, the people in the Uyghur provinces out in Western China.
Yep.
Go talk to the people in Hong Kong. Go talk to everybody who's got their social credit.
I've travelled all through China. I went to Wuhan and the Hubei province a couple of years ago, and I'm telling you, mate, there are collapsed buildings and people living in absolute tragedy and poverty, and it has this massive, massive history dating back to like the Maoist era, where like hundreds of millions of people are dying and being slaughtered because of the ideology being uttered by their leaders.
Yeah.
To make a case that this guy is not a dictator is it's really casting. It's worse than inappropriate. It's just devoid of historical logic.
But it's
really.
also, it's like, one of the raps against.
Makes me angry. I'm sorry. It makes me angry.
And mate, you're right to be angry. But the thing is that, like, the rap against Trump is always, he empowers America's enemies and everything, blah, blah, blah. Well,
Democrats do it, and you don't even hear it. People but China is an important trading partner.
First of all, the Obama administration was all about going and apologizing to absolutely every enemy of the United States and, flying money to the Iranians. Right. But here we have a guy trying to be Democrat president, and he's actually talking, bigging up China and saying, no, they're not a dictatorship. They're reasonable people. We can deal with them. I mean, that's just not going to fly. But also, he's also got other issues too. Like the discovery process on him was going to be really interesting. A number of years ago, when he was the head of Bloomberg and running that operationally day to day, one of his top female executives came to him and said, I'm pregnant, I'm going to need some mat leave and all of that. And he didn't want her to go on mat leave. He didn't, couldn't afford to lose her. And so he told her to have an abortion. And she sued him over this because he kept harassing her over this, told her actually to, quote, kill it, according to the court documents. They settled this for an undisclosed sum. There's so much wrong about this guy, and that the Democrats are now thinking, this is our guy. I mean, potentially, that just shows how they are just scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Well, it just shows that he stepped in because he says that the Democrats' policies become so far left that they become unpalatable.
Well, he's right.
And he's right. But the fact that someone is abhorrent, morally bankrupt as a man who would pressure someone to have an abortion for business reasons.
Yeah.
Now, all the allegations against Donald Trump, even like the sexual assault allegations, I actually do think that you can rank these things subjectively and to a degree objectively as well. Pressuring someone to kill their unborn baby so you can make money off them is about as unconscionable as it gets.
Well, that's unconscionable.
What are we doing here, Democrats? What are we doing here?
For the Chinese dictatorship?
Yeah.
Unconscionable.
Yeah.
All of this is unconscionable. And, Mate, and the fact, though, you know what else is unconscionable? The fact that the idea that Michael Bloomberg's law and order policies when he's mayor of New York City, that those are unconscionable to the Democrats, that's also unconscionable. So it shows the whole thing of how they're tied into knots. But speaking of billionaires, I want to go back to your favorite topic again, Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah,
because
so I can't believe I'm defending Bloomberg here now after all the stuff I'm saying, but I think you've got to be intellectually consistent. So people are complex beasts, right? Now, Elizabeth Warren's, it's being said, but there's a duality of personal, more than that. We're complicated, right? And someone can be really bad, but then do good things. Yeah, well, you not so much. You're very simplistic. You're
Is
kind
it
of
the
like
Jungian thing? I don't know.
you're kind of like a caricature of like a tabloid journo. If someone was to draw up in like a movie, like a tabloid journalist.
They won't let me drink bourbon and smoke a cigar on the set.
You can.
That's unconscionable.
No. You can do that here.
Oh, okay.
You can do that, mate. This is This is 2019.
2019. I love it.
Your
Tell
body,
me,
your choice.
Tell me about Warren.
So to construct an argument, this is what Elizabeth Warren has done. She's gone a little bit of a rant, and hopefully we'll be able to play you this clip.
So I had an idea that what we ought to do in this country is a 2-cent wealth tax. Your first $50 million is free and clear. I know that lets you relax a little. But your 50 millionth and first dollar, you pitch in 2 cents, and 2 cents on every dollar after that.
But essentially, Elizabeth Warren has gone on this rant saying 2% of your wealth should go to the state every year, and then she's talking about billionaires such as Bloomberg, and she goes
2% of everyone's wealth, or
everyone's wealth.
Really?
Yes. Compounding every year. This is her policy. This is her policy platform that she wants to take to the election.
Why would anybody accumulate wealth?
Well, because wealth is immoral. So this is what I want to say.
This is what I'm saying.
Mike Bloomberg might be an unconscionably evil man that wants to kill babies, and he is.
He's very sort of, you're making him sound very sort of like,
but
we will have stop and frisk policies in New York City.
He's evil and unconscionable for that reason. He's not evil because he has money. He's accumulated money because he has done trades over a period of time which has benefited two parties mutually.
And he's
built,
built a business.
Yep.
He's built a business that provides a service that people pay for.
Exactly. So Elizabeth Warren, and we touched on this earlier, but she has constructed an argument that people who have accumulated wealth are doing something immoral. And it is akin to Labor's war on the big end of town, which we saw in Australia, and it spectacularly failed. So the problem here is to insinuate that if you work hard and you accumulate even billions of dollars, that should be taken off you 2% a year. Bill Gates is furious about this. Bloomberg's furious about this. Another guy is furious about this. Ilhan Omar has actually stepped in and said, "Oh well, all the Jewish people are defending each other because she's a raging anti-Semite."
Yeah, she actually go back. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. Is I think actually. And I know that there's a lot of stuff on the Republican side to talk about. We'll talk about that next week. But I think this week we really got to talk about the Democrats here. Ilhan Omar, she was talking on Twitter, and I mean, my God, get this woman away from Twitter. She just...
No, give her the rope.
Give her the Twitter.
We need to know what she's all about.
She was talking about a guy named Leon Cooperman, who is a big, huge billionaire investor, also...
Well-known Jewish man as well.
Of the Jewish faith, So the news comes out. Leon Cooperman says he will support Mike Bloomberg for president. Ilhan Omar tweets, I wonder why.
Yeah, so the backstory is, on the face value, it might be because rich people looking after rich people. But it's clearly something far more insidious, because this is the same woman that tweeted out, it's all about the Benjamins when talking about Israeli influence over the United States.
This is also the same woman who has tweeted a number of things, including that she hoped on Twitter, because this is where, of course, you put all of your prayers out. She said that she prayed that Allah would remove the blindness that the Israelis had put over the world, over their crimes and all of this. She's disgusting. She just got all of this, really.
Her and Bernie Sanders, they also
stuff.
want to put sanctions on Israel, but they don't want to put sanctions on. They don't want to put sanctions on China.
Nope.
They don't want to put sanctions on Venezuela.
No, not Venezuela, because it's
no. They want to put sanctions on Israel. Right, so she's saying, I'm criticising Israel, not Jewish people. But she's isolating the fury. She's isolating it to Israel.
That is the sleaziest.
And you know what she says? She says, if we don't give aid money to Gaza, or if Israel doesn't give aid money to Gaza, where we know it's run by Hamas, a terrorist organisation.
And they're firing rockets in Israel
they're firing
right
rockets,
now,
and they tie napalm bombs to balloons and float them over into the agricultural land surrounding. We've both been there. We've both been to the Gaza Strip.
We've seen this. So
it's a disgrace.
But this whole idea that, we're not anti-Semitic, we're just,
It's just policy. If you direct your policy into a particular geo-specific area because people of a specific religion that you don't like live there, then that's an anti-Semitic policy.
As Maury Povich, the American talk show host, I don't know if people know Maury Povich, but as he would say, the lie detector determined that was a lie. You know, that this whole idea, oh, no, it's not anti-Semitic. Ilhan Omar, I'm sorry, I'm calling it out. If it sounds anti-Semitic and it looks anti-Semitic, it's anti-Semitic.
But this is your point. You just made this point quite succinctly before. This is why Bloomberg looks, well, you overdue.
Thank you. But
Bloomberg looks centrist because he's up against people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar.
But that's the thing too, is that that's the whole problem that the Democrats have. They have tilted so far.
And it's like, this guy's not a total lunatic. Maybe he should be president.
Yeah. And I mean, and on some levels, you know, there's like a case to be made that, you know, because he's got sympathetic positions on gun control and things like that. But the Democrats have gone so far out to the left, like you just put your coffee there,
I've always been known as being too far left.
I don't know how that's why you sit on the left of me. I don't know how they're going to tack back to the center for the election. The general election, that's going to be a huge problem for that. But I want to talk, just while we're on the question of foreign policy, big news out of Bolivia. Everybody just says, what? Bolivia? What are you talking about? Anyway, big news. There was the dictator, president, whatever you want to call him there, Evo Morales. Dictator. Socialist, communist type, you know, South American in the sort of the Hugo Chavez mold. Been in power for 14 years. There was a referendum sometime back that said presidents of Bolivia can only have 2 terms. He tried to make a run for a 4th term.
Well, he already had an illegal 3rd term, which is why I feel comfortable calling him a dictator. There was a referendum. They overwhelmingly said, no, you can't have this term. He ignored the referendum.
So, and then there was a lot of stuff about the ballot boxes seemed funny, the counting seemed funny. There's lots of other stuff.
He is corrupt as hell.
The military eventually said enough. There was mass demonstrations in the streets. People said enough. We don't want you. Get out. And so he's off. He's found asylum in Mexico. But now Ilhan Omar has called it a coup on Twitter, and our old friend. Here's Ilhan's tweet. She says, there's a word for the president of a country being pushed out by the military. It's called a coup. Well, to me, that actually sounds like what they keep calling for about Donald Trump in the New York Times. But anyway, and then she goes on and says, we must unequivocally oppose political violence in Bolivia, which, again, boy, you know, that wouldn't make you popular at the ABC. We're on Q&A. They love to talk about political violence.
Well, Q&A thinks political violence is
but
justified.
Anyway, and then Bolivians deserve free and fair elections, and absolutely agree with that, Ilhan Omar. They deserve elections where the ballot boxes aren't being stuffed by a communist dictator. But then we'll move on to what Bernie Sanders had to say, too. I don't know if we've got his tweet, but he writes, I am very concerned about what appears to be a coup in Bolivia, where the military, after weeks of political unrest, intervened to remove President Evo Morales. The U.S. must call for an end to violence and support Bolivia's democratic institutions. Now, this to me, I mean, again, this sounds to me like the
Jeremy Corbyn, by the way, also hopped on.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, it's the usual suspects.
I got to say, Jack, and maybe... Yeah. Tell us out there what you think, listeners. Should we do a special Race to 2020 where we do a Race to 10 Downing Street in a couple of weeks all about the December 12th election coming up in the UK?
Oh, we've got to do a British special.
Brexit. We should. What do you think? Let us know. Leave us a comment.
Let us know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments if you want us to do that, because I think that'll be a lot of fun. Maybe we could even get a special guest in. Who knows? It could be a lot of fun. But the thing is, though, let's talk about this whole thing about supporting democratic institutions. You know, this is the way that Leninists always fight. They always say, we must support the democratic institutions. And then they use the democratic institutions to get in, take power, and then there's never another election. It's what happened in Eastern Europe. It's what happened in every place that turns communist, is that they use the electoral system to take power. They use all the institutions, hollow them out, and then take over control of them, and then, you know, you never get to vote again.
Isn't it disturbing that you've got these two very prominent political voices, and they don't have an issue with a fella that's stolen an illegal term and is trying to get a 4th one. And the way that they're spinning it is that he has been victimized.
And see how how the media is talking about this. You know, it's all this whole sort of
extraordinary.
You know, and you talk about this versus the way other things are covered, and it's, you know, and it's always, you know, one spin or the other. And, you know, again, the media, I think, is a huge story about American elections, but elections everywhere, because they play such a role now. And the objective media has now gone so far away from its pretense of objectivity that they really are just pushing an agenda. And I think that's a really important story to cover. And the thing is that it is bad. It is genuinely bad, I think, for journalism when, you know, they push these sorts of left-wing agendas, because they increased distrust of the media. People don't, and then you start to hollow out that institution, which is important. What we do, what newspapers do, whatever their sort of general slant is, when they start going from having kind of a shade one way or the other, kind of a general editorial line, to this sort of thing where it's just simply active cheerleading and campaigning, that's a problem.
I think that's probably a really nice place to end it, do you think?
I think it's a lovely place. Jack Houghton and I'm James Morrow. We are here for another edition of Race to 2020 next week. Tune in, and
we also want to have a look at your comments. We're loving everything that you guys are writing down the bottom. There are some really funny ones. So next week we're going to pick some of our favourite ones. So write in, comment down the bottom, and then maybe you'll appear on next week's edition of Race to 2020. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you, Jack. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.